Welcome, everybody. Episode 37 SF Live. My name is Kai Hoffmann. I'm the CEO of the Soar Financial Group. And today we have a special company joining us, John McConnell. He's the President CEO of Victoria Gold. Before I switch over to John, as always, I got to remind you, use hashtag AskVGCX. That's the company's ticker on the TSX for your questions during our live stream. John and I will have a quick conversation before we switch over to Twitter and see what kind of questions you guys are asking. And we'll get to all of them, promise. Also, make sure you follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube, Spotify as well, and Instagram. Make sure you like our content. That way you'll always get notified as well when we go live with another episode. Now I have the pleasure to welcome John McConnell. John, how are you doing this morning?
Very good. How are you, Kai?
Hanging in there. I'm on my third or fourth cup of coffee already. I've been up early. It's been a busy morning, so can't complain. It's a holiday in the US, so things should be slower, but it seems like everybody's trying to make use of the opportunity of visibility here, so not being drowned out by some stuff. So
right. I know I chatted with a couple of shareholders this morning from the US, so they say they're still stuck at home, so might as well keep working.
No, I felt like that last week when it was Victoria Day here. It's like it wasn't much of a difference in a day anyway. So
no.
Can't go out to the parks or anything. So we got a full list of things to talk about. Like I have the feeling I'm completely underprepared because we got so many topics to talk about with Victoria Gold. This is like a semi-world premiere because the last time you spoke publicly somewhere was the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. That's the last video I could find of you. So this is a world premiere of John McConnell on YouTube and Twitter, I guess. And I got a side note, by the way, you get the worst Twitter name, the worst Twitter handle. I think Brent Cook and you have the worst Twitter handles.
And I don't even know what a Twitter handle is. So
well, you got 330 followers. So it's I think your Twitter handle is John MCC and then some weird random number. So now, we got lots of stuff to talk about. First, we need to talk about the corona situation in the Yukon and, of course, how it has affected the commercial ramp-up process for you guys at Eagle. Maybe we can start there.
Sure. Well, we recognized quite early on, sort of mid-February, that, COVID was going to be an issue. I purposely didn't go to PDAC this year because I was nervous about it, but more I wanted to get up to the mine because I could see that government officials were getting nervous. And so we worked with government officials and the chief medical officer in the Yukon and came up with a series of measures that everyone was comfortable with, that we could keep operating. So we haven't really missed a beat. There are impacts. I know employees always don't have their mind on the job because, their families are down south or whatever. So, some of the productivity has dropped. We, change out a full crew every 4 weeks now. And it seems like people have forgotten their job a little bit. And so for the first 3 or 4 days, the productivities are lower, but we're continuing to operate. And, there are no cases in the Yukon. I think the last case reported was 4 weeks ago now. So, they put in measures in the Yukon that hopefully will keep the numbers very low for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think there's a 2-week quarantine going into the Yukon, right? Once you enter the territory, you got to quarantine yourself for 2 weeks. How are you dealing with that situation? I'm sure you got some workers coming in from out of territory.
Yeah, so we probably have 150 employees that are from Alberta or BC. And as you say, when they come in, we self-isolate them in hotels in Whitehorse before they go to the mine site. Fortunately, more than 50% of our employees are Yukoners, and they don't have any restriction.
Cool. No, that's helpful because you're in the commercial ramp-up process. You're in the most important phase almost of the mine built right now. So everything's going to go working to plan. And you said you're going to go commercial this quarter. I saw that in a presentation as well. I think you announced Q2 2020. Are we on track for that?
Yeah, we're essentially at commercial rates right now. There are some tax advantages to delaying the official announcement until the end of the quarter. So it saves us a little money. So we'll do that.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. And if you're producing already, I think we should talk about the April. You put out some April numbers. Let's start there because we're just talking about the ramp up. And you announced that you produced 6,700 ounces, if I'm not mistaken, roughly in April. How is that looking? And like what I'm really getting at, and what I'm really personally interested in as well, like how have you fared over the winter? Because I think it was a fairly harsh one in the Yukon.
Sure. We've always planned that we would not stack on the leach pad during the 3 coldest months of the year. So we mine and primary crush year round, and we secondary crush and stack for 9 months of the year. So we stopped stacking mid-December and resumed stacking mid-March. But the good news is we kept leaching right through the winter, and it was a very cold winter this year. First time I've experienced minus 50 in my career, and I've spent my whole career in Canada's north. So anyway, that is cold, and but the good news is the leach pad didn't freeze or anything, and we produced gold right through the winter. And then once we started getting fresh ore on the pad in March and April, we saw the gold production come up. So as you said, we produced just under 7,000 ounces of gold in April, and we're on track to produce somewhere around 10,000 ounces in May. Then June, July, we'll get up to, numbers closer to 15,000 ounces per month.
Okay, so with your feasibility and the plan you had to build the mine, like how does that fare in comparison? Like what's the comparison? The quarter or the monthly production rate, and also I want to know about the average grade as well. So what's that looking?
Yeah, I think it compares well. I don't have those numbers in front of me right now, but and we haven't provided any guidance on production, but things are going very well. In terms of grade, we sample all the drill blast holes as well. We have a belt sampler that samples the feed going on to the leach pad. And we reconcile both of those numbers right back to the block model. And so far, we're getting great reconciliation, and the numbers are bang on.
No, fantastic. And it's a fairly simple project. The only problem, like in my opinion, always was the cold up there and whether the leach cycle would be interrupted by the minus 55 or so degrees, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. And, I've always told people, look at what they've done at Fort Knox and look how it performed at Brewery Creek in the past. And, the number we monitor is the temperature of the barren solution going on to the leach pad and the temperature of the pregnant solution coming off the leach pad. And we always, through the whole winter, saw an increase in temperature of the solution coming off the pad. For example, say the solution temperature was 5 degrees going on to the pad, it was 9 degrees coming off the pad. So, the reaction between gold and cyanide is slightly exothermic. So as long as you get enough material on the pad and get it working, you keep the heat there.
That's a good point. And I don't want to get too technical, but as you said, get enough material on the pad. And now I'm wondering about the leach cycle time as well, because you don't stack for 3 months, right? So
yeah.
There must be a good match, like in between, because you get 90 days roughly where you're not stacking, plus or minus a few days. But just how does that work?
Yeah, so a complete leach cycle for us is 150 days. So we're not even through a full leach cycle since we restarted stacking in mid-March. And that's why I say we'll produce more in May than we did in April, and then June more than we did in May, and then we'll get to a nice plateau, and monthly production will be very level until we stop stacking again next December.
Okay, curious. I don't have the number in my head. Just remind me. Annual production that was planned is 125, correct?
Originally? Ounces?
Yeah.
No, it's always been around
Oh,
200,000.
okay. Okay, sorry. No, I was off there. I was just trying to do the math with the 10 and 15,000 ounces for May and June, so I was off there. So, one thing we need to talk about as well. COVID hit, and you guys did a couple financings, one in February and one not just too long ago, where you raised close to $7 million in flow through, and another 23 million US for Eagle. Can you give us some more color on that, and why did you raise the money?
So we were being opportunistic in January when we raised development flow through. It's similar to exploration flow through, but it's can only be applied to things like waste stripping.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an opportunity, so we raised money then, and that was used for waste stripping in phase 2 of the open pit. So that money's been expended now. More recently, we were approached by BMO and PI, and they offered us a bought deal, $20 million financing. We didn't need the money at the time. We don't need it, but I refer to it as my COVID reserve fund. We're a single asset company, and if government does something silly, or if all of a sudden there's 20 cases of COVID at site and we're forced to shut down, this gives us a reserve to weather the storm until we get measures in place to deal with it. So that was the thinking behind it. I hope we never have to spend a cent of it, and that we're using it in the fourth quarter to buy back our shares.
I was thinking, or just dividend it out to the shareholders.
Well, that's a possibility as well.
So the CDE's the development fund. We talked about that, but you already spent the $7 million. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Because it's a CDE you don't see too often, so I just like to make it clear on what it is and
Sure.
what the timeline is for
No,
spending
there's a lot of people don't understand the difference, but it has to be. You'll see underground mining companies raise it for development, underground development,
No.
but it's very narrow uses in a open pit operation.
No, I can imagine. So cool. Talking about it, like you raised $20 million as your reserve fund, but you also have a $10 million exploration budget. Let's talk about exploration and upside at Eagle and the area. You have a big property. You added to it recently as well, and then you got exploration assets in Nevada as well. Let's talk about your exploration plans moving forward and how to add to Eagle there.
Yeah, originally we had a $10 million budget, and we thought we'd be on the ground now. Now, COVID has impacted that. So we expect to start exploration in July.
Okay.
And we've reduced our budget to $5 million this year. But, if we have success, we're cash flowing a lot of money. So if there's good success, we'll, probably up the budget.
Okay. What are you planning in terms of meters? And I think, remind me of the name of the project that's fairly close to Eagle between Banyan Tree, or why do I keep calling it Banyan Tree? Because there's a hotel chain that's called Banyan Tree. Banyan Gold and the Oryx McQuestion project and your project. Are you going to be spending most of the time there or most of the budget there?
Yeah, we have a property or a target out to the east of Eagle, about 15 kilometers east. And it's another large granodiorite intrusive, similar to the one that hosts Eagle. So we're going to spend the money on drilling there. We've got planned about 14,000 meters. And within the Eagle, or the Nugget granodiorite, is an area we call Raven. And we think we have a new discovery there. We made it last year. And what's interesting about it is it's much higher grade than Eagle so far, although it's early days. But we're seeing multi-gram intercepts right on surface.
I was going to ask you what's higher grade for you, or high
Yeah.
grade, because Eagle I think is
Well, there's,
0.63 if I'm not mistaken.
2, 3, 4, 5 grams over 125
Okay.
meters. So pretty exciting stuff. So that'll be the main focus is Raven. I think about half the drilling is planned there. And then the other half of the drilling is on the greater Nugget intrusive.
Okay. And what's going to be the mill capacity at Eagle? Will you be, once ramp up is done, at 100%, or do you got some more room to expand it easily, or just add to it?
Yeah, because it's heap leach, we just, really need to expand the leach pad or build a second leach pad.
Okay, so fairly easy to add the new ounces that you're finding right now.
Yes.
Okay. Any permitting involved? Anything that might take the expansion of the tailings, the heap leach pad or so?
Yeah, we need an amendment to our current license, and we're going to submit the application for that amendment this year.
Okay, so you got instant, like immediate plans to add to it. And what's the timeline roughly for an amendment? Does it go fast? Because I know Alexco, your neighbor, is still waiting for a water permit, and that's taken on years. So,
Yeah, there's lots of differences between, Alexco and Victoria. Um, and I'm not, I won't go into the problems they've had, but, we think it probably takes, 18 months to get the amendment, but we don't need a second leach pad for 7 years. So we're getting a real early start on it.
okay, sounds like you had some plans with it. So that's exciting to hear, though, to expand the production, because you're one of the bigger producers in Canada right now as well. So curious, expansion is one thing. Like shareholders of yours are Orion, for example. I think if I'm not mistaken, 47% is Orion, 49.
No, they're a little lower. I think with this recent
Oh, fine. Okay.
financing,
Yeah.
we asked them not to participate and they were happy with that. So they're closer to 40% now.
Okay. What are their plans with their share moving forward? Because they, like, the reason I'm asking, they own a lot of assets that are not in public companies. I'm just curious. I'm trying to figure out what they're planning to do, and have they mentioned anything? They're 40% shareholder of a bigger producer.
Oh, we shared lots of ideas. And, I would say the one thing Orion does is make money. And I have no doubt that if somebody came along and offered them $20 a share for Victoria, they would be interested. Um, the other opportunity is to, as you say, they've got lots of interests in other companies, and maybe we do some sort of combination when the timing's right.
Okay, no, I know Eric Sprott, for example. As soon as he gets a foothold in the company, he's trying to maximize his exposure in the area or something with other holdings he's got. So, just
Yeah.
more speculative on my part. But let's switch over to Twitter. We got a question in from Path Capital out of Berlin, actually, and let me see. I think we answered part of it. But he's asking, in the November 19 presentation, there was a point that you'd say you'd be cash flow positive fairly soon. Why did you raise 23 million in May? We talked about that. More of a reserve, more just a COVID reserve in case anything happens. He's asking if there are any cash flow problems in the ramp up phase, and do you need more money to commercial production?
Yeah, we were cash flow positive in the fall, but then when we stopped stacking in December, we were no longer cash flow positive through December, January, February, March, and the first part of April. But we're now cash flow positive again. We do not need any further financing to achieve commercial production. I think we're sitting with roughly 40 million in cash right now. So we're in very good shape. We have our first debt payment coming up at the end of this month, and we'll very comfortably make that debt payment.
And he's further asking what will be the all-in sustaining costs for 2020, but you haven't put out a guidance yet, have you, for that?
Yeah, I have to be a little careful on that, but it won't be the life of mine 800. It'll be something a little north of that.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. John, we got so many topics to talk about. It's like I wish I could go way more into detail, but we're running out of time here. So I really appreciate you coming on. So as a last question thing, some Victoria Gold up for us in 30 seconds with the news flow coming up and catalysts as well, potentially.
Yeah, I think, news flow, commercial production here shortly, exploration out at Raven. We're in the process of refinancing our debt. We've gone out to more than 30 financial institutions, and we think probably third or fourth quarter we'll refinance the debt into one package at a much lower interest rate. And we're also investigating, listing in the U.S. We're looking at the pros and cons and the different exchanges there, but I think we're leaning towards listing in the U.S. in the fourth quarter.
Okay, so those are massive value drivers as well. And I'm curious, like, what's your current debt percentage, the interest you're paying?
It's LIBOR. It's three different facilities, and they're all a little different. But a good blended number is LIBOR plus 6%.
Okay, and you can definitely get cheaper loans right now, or cheaper money.
LIBOR is, less than 1% right now. So, we think we can get it down to LIBOR plus 3%.
Okay, and since I got you, what's the total dollar number you would save, just in case, theoretically, if you were able to package it like that?
I can't remember, Kai. And the other difference is, I wouldn't say it's a problem, but at current gold price, we'll repay the debt in less than 2 years. So there's some incentive to get it redone as quickly as possible.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And getting that burden off is phenomenal. So that's great. John, thank you so much for joining us. It was a great pleasure having you on, especially after, let's call it a drought of you being on the internet, on social media. So really appreciate you coming on SF Live here. Everybody else, thank you for your questions. Thanks for your time. Thanks for watching. Again, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube and Twitter channels. Follow us on Spotify as well. That's for your commute from your bedroom to your bathroom to your home office. And we'll see everybody else on the next episode. John, stay safe, and we'll talk very soon.
Thanks, Kai.